Good day, vacation travel hacks here for all of you going on an Alaskan cruise, departing out of the port of Seattle, or a cruise to Alaska that's stopping in Seattle. Or maybe you're just going to Seattle and you're looking for some things to do. And there's the obvious things to do. And then there's the really, really cool things to do that might not be so obvious. I was born and raised in Seattle. I go back there at least once a year, and I'm like a tourist, but I pretty much have the lay of the land. So let's go ahead and take a look here at some of the things to do. Here's a view of Western Washington, and I'm pretty sure all your brochures are going to say, hey, here's a bunch of stuff to do right in the waterfront district. And yes, you should definitely do them, and a lot of them can be done very, very simply from your hotel. So if you're staying in Seattle, getting ready to go to the port of Seattle to catch a cruise. There's Pike's Place is a pretty centralized location. From Pike's Place, you can go up to the Westlake Center near Nordstrom's to take the monorail to the Space Needle. So you can get a lot done, and I'll kind of show you what you can see when you do that. But you can get a lot done, and from Pike's Place, you can take the stairs down to the waterfront. So easily in a day, you can reasonably spend a lot of time in the locations. You can also take your time and do it over 2 days, but certainly doable within a day. So let's talk about what that looks like. The Space Needle. Actually, I was just there in June of 2023, visiting some family. Always got to go to the first Starbucks. Does the coffee taste different? No, but the souvenirs they're different with this logo. And then of course you do the Pike's Place Market. We took the monorail from Westlake Center, pretty much from like right around here. And the monorail takes you right up to the Seattle Center, and then you just follow the signs to the Space Needle. If you're like, well, I don't know if I can read a sign, the Space Needle is that thing that is like really high in the sky right in front of you. That's actually what it looks like. There's other things to do. So we mentioned the Seattle waterfront. So you are going on a cruise. That's probably going to take you to Alaska or some other destination, but you can get a really cool view of the water here. These were taken from one of the Washington State ferries. Pretty cheap. Going from west to east is free, and going from east to west, if you're a passenger, I think it's under $10. So it's pretty cool. If you go, there's two different ferries. One is a 1 hour to Bremerton, and the other is 35 minutes from Seattle to Bainbridge Island, and then 35 minutes back. It's probably in port there for about 15, 20 minutes, offloading and unloading and onloading and, all that stuff. Otherwise, I mean, this is a really cool, you can get pictures of yourself, at the front of the ferry with Seattle in the backdrop, selfies, do it for the gram kind of a thing. And then as you get closer to Seattle, so you can have the wide view if you take a selfie, on your way back or late on your way out, or you can take a selfie really close and it would look a little bit like this. Look into it. You can get the ferry schedule by Googling Washington State Ferry. And right now, the Bremerton ferry is running one because one of the ferries ran aground. So they had to take a ferry out of service and move it to the Bainbridge Island ferry. Bainbridge Island would be the one, not only because it's shorter, you still get to see everything. What I mean is when you take the ferry over, you can, on a clear day and during the summer, during Alaskan cruise season, it's clear often. You can get a clear shot to the North Sound and a clear shot to the South Sound towards Tacoma. And up this way, well, you can't see Vancouver, but that's a general direction. All right, so other things to do. I would have, it's cheap, take some time, but memories, it's really, really, really cool to do. Otherwise, what I recommend is kind of getting out of Seattle altogether and go over to the West Sound, go over to the Olympic Peninsula. There's the Olympic National Park. And I'm going to go and talk about, there's many hundreds of things to do. I'm going to start with just some really cool things to do. I'll talk about it on this map, and then I'll show you some pictures of some of the things that I did in our last trip, June and July of 2023. Easy to get to the West Sound, and this could very well be a day trip for any one of these things. We're going to assume that you take the Bainbridge Island ferry. Let's assume that you rented a car and you're staying at a hotel. Rental cars out of the SeaTac International Airport. I rented it for a week from National Rental Car. it was $349 with taxes and fees. So not all that unreasonable. So on a day, you're probably looking at 50, 60, 70 bucks. So if you're coming a couple days early, if you're staying a couple days late, a couple $100 gives you the freedom of not necessarily being stuck in Seattle, but doing some really cool things. So anyway, you take the 35-minute ferry. It's about a 45-minute drive. This is a Hood Canal Bridge here. It's a floating bridge. You might want to take pictures as you cross it. It's pretty long, pretty iconic. You can Google it, like, hey, this guy's saying it's cool. Google Hood Canal Bridge. It's very cool. And then you go over across the way here, and you follow the signs towards Fort Warden. It's a World War I fort that protects. It's up here. Pictures will be later, but it protects the Admiralty Inlet, Puget Sound proper, from the people who meant to do harm at the time. So it stood up here, and to get to Seattle, if you wanted to go bomb Seattle, if you will, you'd have to get through Fort Warden. So anyway, that's about an hour or so from Seattle. Otherwise, you go up a little bit further, and here's the thing called the Dungeness Spit. It says Dungeness here, and then here is the Spit. We'll show you what that looks like. That's part of the Washington State Park System. Very cool. Go a little bit further on the 101 here, west towards Port Angeles. You got a couple different cool things to do. You can take a ferry. I don't believe foot ferries are in operation right now. Right now, you got the MV Coho running from Port Angeles to Victoria. And then you can also take a road south and go to the Olympic National Park up to a place called Hurricane Ridge. Recommend doing it. If you're a Twilight fan, you can take a 101 a little bit more. Here's Forks. Around here, you get the H-O-H National Rainforest. So you can go to a rainforest while you're here. You want to see the Pacific Ocean? This isn't the ocean here. This is the Strait of Juan to Fuca. I guess you can call it the ocean. This is the Puget Sound. Over here is the ocean, and Ruby Beach is a place to see the ocean. And then if you just want to complete the 101 circle, you can finish it up, and then it drops you off down Olympia, and then you can take I-5 back. So there are a lot of stuff to do. And in the Olympic National Forest, we're going to talk about just a couple things, which is really not doing it any justice. There's a lot of really cool things to see. So let's talk about Fort Warden, Port Townsend. If you're trying to get pictures of you in front of lighthouses, when you park at Fort Warden, there's like a parking area right here, and you can walk to the lighthouse. And the lighthouse is right here. This is what it looks like. And this is the Kinsey Fort. This dude was in charge of it, 1910 to 1919, and or 1902 to 1910. The sign there, I forget what it was. But this is the fort, and in here's a bunch of little caves, and bring a flashlight. Strongly recommend bringing a flashlight because it takes you right here. And not only while you're in there, it's cool to be in an old fort. Be careful, the railings, steps steep. Those with access issues, you might just want to stay on the ground level and maybe just walk into some of the caverns, if you will. And be careful if you're sensitive to smells. It kind of smells like stagnant water. It's not the best smell. Seawater kind of gets in there sometimes. It's not the best smell, but very cool nevertheless. Otherwise, you see cruise ships, cargo ships, a lot of cargo ships cruising past to take the turn down to the Port of Seattle, Port of Tacoma, and if you're lucky, maybe an aircraft carrier or a battleship. All right, so that's Port Townsend, Fort Warden. Otherwise, I mentioned Hurricane Hill, Hurricane Ridge, elevation 5,242 feet. Hurricane Hill is higher than Hurricane Ridge. Again, if you're doing it for the gram, doing it for the selfies, Hurricane Ridge, you get get one of these pictures here with you in the front. Here you can see a Puget Sound. You can also see the Strait of Juan to Fuca. That's Canada right there. Over there is Victoria. This is Port Angeles in the foreground here, and you can see wildlife. Very cool, very scenic. If you like going to the top of mountains, you get to drive to the top. I wouldn't call it, if you go to the visitor center, which actually burned down, so they're going to rebuild it here. Maybe it'll be up for the 2024 season. They can't build during the winter. I think they're still demolishing it. So, anyway, there's a lot to see. And if you don't want to do, a strenuous workout climbing to the top of Hurricane Hill, there's still a lot to see without doing that. And there's a lot of pavement, so it's wheelchair accessible. All right, on to the next. Dungeon of Spit. This is a for this is an activity for the go-getters. So there's two different types of activities. There's the just kind of hang out down here at the base of it. You can see some stuff, and that's fun to see here. If you're a goal person who likes to, maybe you're a Disney half marathon person, somebody who likes to do 10Ks, 5Ks. The lighthouse is 5 miles out into the spit, and the only way to get there is to walk this green path to the lighthouse. Good, I'll show you some pictures. Actually, it's 5.5 miles. I stand corrected. It felt like 5 though. It was quick. So you get up to the top of this lighthouse. You can take it if you're a lighthouse person. You can take pictures in front of it. Go up to the light. Take pictures from the light. I'll show you what it looks like. Very cool. But just remember, you get 5.5 miles out. You get to do 5.5 miles back. I've done it twice, and it's cool. You get to see a lot of stuff. It's not easy. I don't want to convey that it's easy. It's a beach, and some of it's sanded, but some of it's nice and packed, almost like cement, almost. So it's easy to deal with. There is maybe 500 yards of bigger rocks, but when you go down this hill here, there's a path right here. There's a little path you go down. You park. You walk down this path right here, and you're onto the beach. Right about here, you can see that the lighthouse is just right there. It's just right there. When you're at the lighthouse, the path you started at is is just right here. It's just right there, but it's 5.5 miles away because you're walking in a bend. See how you're not walking to the lighthouse. You got to walk all the way around. So very cool. Lot to see there. And that's Mount Baker. Mount Baker, actually, Mount Rainier near Seattle is the dominant mountain. Up in the North Sound, Mount Baker kind of takes over the predominant mountain view there. So anyway, you get to climb to the top of this thing. This is where I took this picture, and it is very cool to see. Otherwise, you can continue your journey to Forks, to the beach. Over also, there's that ferry to Victoria. If you, like I said, if you book a couple days early, a couple days after your cruise or whatever you're planning, it would be a heck of a day trip from Seattle. It would. You could be done. I normally do day trips to Victoria from Bremerton, which is where I'm from, and that's a full day. You could certainly spend the night and probably make a better time of it, but it's a full day. You're probably leaving at like 6 a.m, catching roughly a 10 a.m. ferry. It's about 90 minutes to cross the strait here. Then you got customs. So if you leave at 6 a.m., you're probably not getting out to Victoria until probably noon-ish. And then you got about 4 hours of free time here to see the sights, the gardens. It's really like going to a different country. It's Canada, but it's like a different world. Like here, you're in like rugged outdoor Port Angeles, and here you're like in sophisticated Victorian architecture, and it's named Victoria after Queen Victoria. So anyway, very cool. Good seafood there on the waterfront, the harbor. I definitely recommend doing it. Otherwise, you can head over to Forks. Lake Crystal's here, a really cool lake. I think it's Crystal. No, yeah, it's Lake Crystal. And just really cool waters. It's cold. I'm not recommending swimming it, although you could go to the hot springs. That's kind of warm. Then you got Forks here for the twilight stuff. If you want to go to the western point here, you got to go to Nia Bay. That's a pretty good hike because it's on like lesser highways, not necessarily faster highways. Like I said, the rainforest, Ruby Beach. Down here, if you were to go to Bremerton and then go down to Belfair over here in 101, you got a thing called the Staircase, which is also very cool. You go up, you can see some waterfalls, and so much to do. And then, heck, Vancouver's not too far away. You got Snoqualmie Falls. There's a lot to do. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to give you some options. If you heard of something, drop me a message here. Hey, tell me about something. Give me some logistics. I plan trips for people when I lived in Nashville, Minnesota, and Indianapolis. Told them where I'm from. They were like, hey, we're going to go out there. What should we do? I'd make them itineraries just because it's fun. and they go out, take their pictures, say, hey, it was a good time, thank you. And anyway, long story short, hope you enjoy your cruise to Alaska. And if you're looking at other things to do in Western Washington, these are some things to do. I hope you travel safely. And until next time, I'll talk to you later.